All right, welcome to Practical Chrome, everybody. This is episode 29, recorded on Tuesday, July 8th, 2014. Of course, we are sponsored by the Effective Group. Do you need a fantastic website that not only looks great on mobiles and tablets, but also gets you selling online? Then the Effective Group is the company for you. To find out more about the Effective Group, view their portfolio, and read about their successes, visit effective-group.com. And of course, we do thank them for sponsoring us over the last couple weeks. It's been a great ride, I tell you what. Again, everyone, welcome to Practical Chrome, the show dedicated to everyday Chrome users. Now, this week, we're going to look at and try and understand native client versus HTML5 when it comes to Chrome apps. One is using web-based languages such as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, while the other is using much lower-level languages like C and C++ that we see on Windows and Mac computers running natively. So what does this mean to us? So we're going to dive into that, figure it out. Also in the news, there's a bunch of stuff going on. Acer's got a couple of news announcements. We've got what else? There's just so much. The USB is now going to be like the Lightning, which if you're familiar with iOS and Apple stuff, they've got the new little wire deal. There's that. So there's a ton of news coming out, but that's what this episode's about. And again, you're watching Practical Chrome. And to catch Practical Chrome, be sure to check out our YouTube channel, Practical Chrome, practicalchrome.com, and of course, did I mention the YouTubes? I think I did. But let's get to our hosts. Mr. Welbes, welcome aboard, sir.
Hey, John, thanks for having me.
You got it. And of course, Mr. Tumblison.
Hey, John, thanks for having me.
Oh, you betcha. This is what we do, right? Every Tuesday night at 10:10, we come together as fanatics of Chrome in the OS form, in the Chromebook form, in the Chromebox form. Craig's actually on a Chromebox. James is on a Chromebook. I'm on a Chromebook. We're broadcasting from Chrome equipment, right? We bring it all to you, the news, the bits, all that good stuff. So honestly, let's get into it. I do have a ton of news. I linked a lot more than I think we're going to have time to talk about, but if you do check the show notes at practicalchrome.com, there's a page for every show. Of course, this one is called the Pinnacle of Native Client. That's a joke you'll get later. And at the bottom, when you scroll down in the show notes, you actually see all the links from all of the news articles that we talk about, and then also when we get into the main, we talk about the different aspects of native client that we're going to talk about. There's links for that as well. So I think we should just get to it, guys. What do you think? Yeah, they're nodding. All right, so let's do it. What I have coming up first is we've been remiss with the Chromecast, and I think that's my fault. I've mentioned a couple of times. I still don't have a router that works. I have like an ancient router from when they're rubbing sticks together to make Wi-Fi signals, and so it doesn't work. So I haven't used it in a while. So I've got a couple of great articles about the Chromecast that I wanted to kind of touch upon. The first one being that the Chrome OS video player is actually going to get Chromecast support. Hot, right? That's pretty cool. So if you have a local file and you play it in the player, whether it be music or whatever, you're going to be able to pump it directly to the Chromecast. I'm going to start with you, James. James, first of all, how often do you use the native player?
There's a native player on this? Okay. Really never, because kind of the point of the Chromebooks is cloud-based. So I do have some MP4s and whatnot stored in my drive, but I don't really have any videos stored locally on my Chromebook that I would use the native video player to watch. It's kind of cool. I guess right now what I would do is I would download a video from Drive locally, and then I could play it in the native video player and then cast it. It would be nice to see Drive get Chromecast support, honestly, but this is cool too.
Agreed. Craig, what about you, sir? Do you use the player often? Would you be casting often, do you think?
I wouldn't be casting often, but I do use the built-in player pretty frequently. I have a collection of media that are DVD rips from just over the years that are now converted to WebM, because of Chrome OS playback. ABI doesn't always play well, stuff like that. So I use that pretty often because I plug in my external hard drive, but I'm not sure I would plug in an external hard drive and then go to the TV, drag my whole thing with me, and try to cast it from there. So I'm not sure that I'll use the casting that much. I will be curious to see what the quality is like, because typically when you cast from a Chromebook, you're either doing a direct cast from like a YouTube player in bed, or tab casting. Since the file is local in that aspect, it'll be like tab casting, but because Chrome OS only supports certain formats anyway, as long as the Chromecast supports the same formats, there may not need to be any transcoding there. It may just be streaming directly from the device. But if they open it up for extra codecs, so for example, if Chrome OS adds support for AVI and the Chromecast doesn't have that, then your Chromebook is still going to have to do that conversion on the fly, just like it would for tab casting. So I'm thinking we're going to have to see how it's implemented, but hopefully this will be more of a direct stream with no interference so that it plays smoothly even on the older ARM devices. So that's my first concern. Right now, all we have is a flag that isn't hooked up to anything. So we'll have to see how the implementation works. But I'm going to be really excited tomorrow to listen to Janko talk about this on the Giga Chrome show, because he's a Chromecast fanatic, and I want to see his reaction to this.
I do too. Hopefully they talked about it. So yeah, and you're right. Dinsan does mention that it's basically a flag that he found in a commit, and it's a few weeks away from dev. It's many weeks from beta. It's many weeks from stable. So it's just something to watch out for. And Craig's right. I think the quality is going to be one of the bigger things. But I think that it's definitely something that's going to be fun to watch, fun to look out for. Now the other one in here is popcorn. Now, of course, I've got it listed as a little popcorn time for Chromecast. And basically, if you're not familiar with popcorn, it's like Netflix, but it's for your. I mean, you can kind of link it directly to torrents and things, so you can watch some things that might not be truly like legal to watch. But it's getting Chromecast support, which I'm not a popcorn time user, but it's one of those things where if you're down with it, I don't know. If you, I don't know. I'm just gonna put it out there. James, popcorn time? Yes or no?
For me, probably no. Just reading about it does seem like one of those things that it's probably going to get shut down, and so I'm not trying to get too excited about it. I'll probably stick with Netflix. It seems like one of those things that by its nature can be used for legitimate purposes and non-legitimate purposes, kind of like a DVD burner. So I'm not really sure what the future is for popcorn time.
I'm with you. Craig, yes or no, sir?
Well, this is actually the second time popcorn time has existed. The first one did get shut down.
Well, the developers left the project because they wanted to stop arguing about it, and that's actually a quote from Dinsan on the Chrome Story article.
Exactly. So this is a kind of second attempt anyway. It's an open sourced version, so I don't know that it can be shut down necessarily. Like James pointed out, these are tools. They can be used for good things, for bad things, and everything in between. Peer-to-peer is an amazing technology. Facebook uses it to throw images around their servers around the world. Skype used to be entirely peer-to-peer until Microsoft took over and made it proprietary. So there are legitimate uses. This app, given the way it's curated and kind of designed, kind of gives the impression that it's designed for some less than legitimate purposes. It's not something I'm interested in, but describing it as the Netflix of BitTorrent is pretty spot on. So if that's the type of thing you're interested in, this is a tool probably worth considering, but as always, keep local laws in mind.
Agreed. So that's that. Now the other one is I labeled James's cat is running for cover, and James, you actually mentioned this last week when we were talking about the how to communicate with your Chromecast. And Chromecast's Wi-Fi free pairing works using ultrasonic sounds. So it is it's just funny. honestly, it's funny. And James, you actually had a good couple of comments last week about it. But I'm wondering about the dogs and the cats. I mean, are they gonna pause when you hit pause? Because that'd be awesome. But be like, quiet, lower the volume on your dog. That's a terrible joke, and I'm so sorry. But it's just funny that they're so. In the quote to the article, and of course this is from OMG Chrome, and it says a unique frequency imperceptible to the human ear is emitted by the streaming devices through this TV speakers. Ensconced within the sound waves is everything nearby mobile devices need to know in order to pair with it. When your phone hears an encoded trill, Chromecast buttons will appear active in supported apps and casting can begin. That's just like freakishly awesome. James, you mentioned it last week. I mean, is this something that you think that you mentioned? What you mentioned was that the fact that you get to your house and you're like, man, I forgot to turn on Wi-Fi. But instead now, this thing is going to be sending out this, this poor dog ear splitting sound, and your phone's going to be like, hey, I got Chromecast support nearby.
Yeah, I think freakishly awesome is a good way to describe it. I can't wait to try it. I can't wait to see what my cats do when I use it. It almost seems like futuristic. Like, what are you talking about? You can't communicate to my TV with sounds, but it's actually happening, and I'm super excited about it. And it will make me feel less like a moron every time I come home and try to cast something, and I don't see the cast button, and I wonder why I don't see the cast button. And it takes me a full minute to realize it's because I didn't turn Wi-Fi on. So this will definitely make me feel less stupid, and I'm always excited about feeling less stupid.
I'm right there with you, Craig. I think that James is right and that I'm right. That freakishly awesome is the way to go with this. But that Joey does mention in the OMG Chrome article that people concerned for their dogs and cats can turn on the Wi-Fi signal just as before. But I think this is a very unique feature available.
I am excited for this. It does seem like future technology, and I cannot wait for developers to start implementing it into self-driving cars and how I get my mail and everything else. This new audio technology, John, we've never used audio for things before. I mean, Morse code maybe, stuff like that, but this is new, John. In all seriousness, this is an interesting idea. It's not new necessarily, but it's innovative in the sense that it's taking something that we forgot about and putting in a newer type of technology and seeing what kind of cool things you can do with it, and I love that. But I'm impressed that someone at Google sat down and thought this up, but I'm more impressed that management went forward with it.
I got you. It's one of those, no, you didn't. Yes, we did. Right? It's one of those, this is Google, son. We do things like cars that drive themselves for like apparently what appears to be no reason at all except for the fact that we got the money to do it. No, but on all seriousness, I think that you're right with the fact that they thought about it and then they actually put it through and now it's in a stable release. That is pretty crazy and unique too. Now my final link for Chromecast and our final Chromecast love has to do with the fact that last week we talked about Android apps coming to Chrome and the fact that the Google team said, hey, listen, if whatever app you want for your Chrome OS from Android, your ports, right? James, you talked about, opening up your phone right away and be like, okay, what apps do I want? Well, now what do you want for your Chromecast? Well, Google's actually asking the same question again, but this time they're actually going through and talking about Chromecast. So they're saying, hey, what would you like to see on your Chromecast, right? So, and again, Dinsana over Chrome Story, he does a very good job. Another write-up on this and has all the links talking about how you can take this quick survey that says, what would you like? And what I'd like to do is, if I could have anything at all, I would like the Weather Underground to make their app push to Chromecast. Because I think the Weather Underground's app is the bomb. To be honest, it might already be. I'm just throwing it out. I'll check it in a minute. but I'd love the Weather Underground's Chrome app, or maybe in Raindar. Raindar's another awesome one that I really like, that I'd like to see. But Craig, is there an app out there that you were like, you know what, I'd love to see this. I'd love to see this feature, this app over on the Chromecast, what would it be?
Well, most smartphones have cameras, and the TVs, as they stand today, can display colors. So I'm wondering if there would be a way to pair your device to your TV by flashing colors in a pattern instead of the sound. It's a joke, John.
Well, the only problem
got it.
I see, I got it. It took me a second. Okay, it took me a second, but it took me a second. I'll admit it. But except for people with epilepsy, that's actually a really good idea. Because you could just be like, boo, 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 and then they could see it, and then, or make a barcode, or a QR code on the big screen, and just boop, 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 boom, done, son. See that? See? You are good at this.
This is probably how the audio thing came up. You had a dumb idea as a joke, and they ran with it. In all seriousness, I think adding the ability to do custom overlays would be cool. So, for example, if you're doing a movie playback and you pause it, if you can pick up your device and draw on it and have that mirror to the TV as an overlay on top of apps that are already being displayed, that would be kind of cool for parties and stuff.
That is awesome.
But I don't know how possible that is, getting everyone meshed together on the same network to make that happen. Maybe that's where you just have a custom disco thing playing at first so you can pair it up. I don't know. But that would be my thought. Do something with overlays.
Dude, that was awesome. I think you should actually fill out the survey, write that out, and make it happen. Because you are absolutely. It's just like the play-by-play. You could be like, Johnny walked off screen, and then this woman yelled at him, and then you could be like the announcer on the sports shows. I love that. James, to be honest, Craig kind of hit it out the park. You're coming up on. It's like coming in after a good comic. It's tough because that was a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know how to follow that. Obviously, the one that almost doesn't need to be mentioned is Flappy Bird. That definitely needs Chromecast support. But we all already knew that. I would like to see Chrome for mobile have tab casting. That'd be kind of fun. But looking through my apps, I had a good one in mind, and I forgot what it was. Kindle, maybe? Not really. It would be kind of cool to read my books on the big screen, but shoot, I had one in here that I thought would be great to have Chromecast support for. But, I also thought it would be kind of cool if Hangouts had Chromecast support. If I could bring up a TV upstairs, I have a 27-inch in the garage that never gets used. It'd be kind of cool. I mean, I could use an HDMI cord if I wanted to, but it'd be cool if I could just cast what I'm doing right now on my big screen, especially so I can see what's going on behind your head a little better instead of on my tiny little Acer screen. I could see it, so that'd be kind of cool. But otherwise, I can't remember what else I wanted to be able to cast besides Chrome. I think Chrome would be cool. Oh, that's what it was. Google Drive. There's a bunch of apps that do it, I guess, so it's not super important. Like I use Cloudcaster on Android, which connects to Google Drive, and then I can cast MP4s and whatever I want from Drive to my Chromecast. But it would be cool if Drive just had that ability natively.
I agree. That's a good one. All right, so that's Chromecast, guys. I mean, more and more stuff coming out. Good things, right? So I did want to give it. We haven't been doing a lot of Chromecast stuff, but we should, because I gotta get mine working. To be honest, it's terrible. I gotta get. I'm terrible. All right, so. But let's move on now. I'm gonna gloss over this one. VR support, Oculus Rift specifically coming to Chrome, wicked, and that's just gonna be like an SDK type thing, and it's only gonna be for certain versions of Chrome. Look out for that. Let's see here. Linux gets Chrome Remote Desktop in beta. That's pretty cool. These are some. I have links to these in the show notes. But I do want to talk about specifically one thing is, first of all, the Acer's expandable bay trail, right? So, and I can't remember if we touched on this exact model or not, but it's the CB3, which is the new Acer model, which is the same form factor as the one that we talked about in regard to the NVIDIA Tegra chip, the ARM chip. But this one, of course, sports the bay trail, which is the slightly lower powered okay, that's not true, but the chip we don't know much about yet in regard to Intel. We know that it's fanless. We know that it could be not as powerful as the Haswell, but we don't have all the reports aren't in yet. But what's unique about this CB3 model is it's giving something that we've been screaming about since day one when it came to people cracking open their machines and being like, man, are you serious that the RAM is soldered to the motherboard and I can't upgrade? Well, it appears that they've really come up and been like, no, you can go ahead on this model. You can shove up to 8 gig in it. In one report that I read, or maybe that's 16. No, it's 8. I believe it's 8. I read 8. This is of course the OMG Chrome article, and Joey's talking about the SSD is 16 gig, but still very interesting. Very interesting. Craig, do you want to crack yours open and upgrade it? Where are you at with the upgrading?
I don't know that I would be interested in doing that personally, but I feel like there's a pricing threshold there where if you're paying less than $300, you expect for a laptop to be non-upgradable, whereas if you're buying a more mid-range laptop, you expect to be able to crack it open and do upgrades to it. So I think it's overwhelmingly a good thing that Acer is taking this approach. I hope it applies to the rest of their lineup, because I think upgrading, no matter the price point, is a positive thing, being able to crack it open. But I don't have a problem with like the Samsung Series 3 that retailed at $250 being non-upgradable, or the HP 11, or even the C720 from Acer. But I feel like if you get $350, $400, $500 laptop, or the Pixel, for goodness sake, you should be able to open that up and play around a little bit. I think that should be part of the. I think the ability to upgrade it should be a factor when doing the R&D if you're going to retail it for a certain price point. Just like we've seen with Windows laptops over the years, just make it easy to get to the stuff that's typically replaced, the RAM, the hard drive. We're not talking about replacing system boards or anything like that, but it'd be nice if you had access to the RAM.
Agreed. James, what are your thoughts on the new CB3 with the expandableness?
I think when a laptop costs $350, it should just have 6 gigabytes of RAM in it, to be honest. But I think it's awesome because I personally feel like I notice a difference between my Acer and my HP 14. The only difference being 2 gigabytes of RAM. I think the Acer struggles a little bit when I get up to 25 or so tabs. So it would be nice to have the ability to add more RAM. So I think that's awesome. I hope Acer continues to do that, and I hope some other manufacturers kind of follow suit.
I agree. And honestly, at a $219 price range, I'm not sure what that exactly translates to, but I believe that is going to be around the $250 range for us, if I'm not mistaken, right? So $250, maybe $300 if they decide to price it as such. So I'm hoping. You know what I'm really excited about? I'm really excited about a new form factor from Acer, and and the fact that they're going with the ARM chip, with the NVIDIA Tegra chip, and then also with the this new Bay Trail, and then that i3 is in the C720. What if they put the i3 also? So you're going to have these three different ranges of this laptop, and I think that's super great. It's really good to see Acer. I mean, Acer's also been out in front for a long time. They've definitely been making money on the Chromebooks. So they're definitely the one to probably keep on designing and manufacturing and coming out with more and more models. But just really exciting to see. So now, speaking of that, Acer dropping the price on the C720, right? So the model that we all love and know and I fawn over daily at my work and at home too. Tonight my wife was actually like, "Are you going to work on the big computer?" Because I do a little bit of GIMP work on a Windows machine, and she was like, "Well, give me your Chromebook," even though she has a Windows 8 machine. So love this thing, but they're actually going to be lowering the price. Now, of course, this is from Chrome Story from Dinsan, and he says that the what you're looking at is $169.15. right? Nice. Nice. Coming down. And that's a ridiculous price. That's cheaper than most tablets at this point, right? James, you have the C720. Well, you have the P now, but how can you beat this?
Well, you could steal one. That would be a pretty good deal.
5-figure discount? Okay.
Yep, $0 is always good. No, that's awesome. I just sold my C720 to my cousin for $150, and I almost feel bad now because for $19 more he could have got a brand new one. But he doesn't know that.
Gonna be pissed.
Yeah, not my fault. But that's just crazy. $169 for what this thing does. I mean, I'm on an Acer C720p. It's the same thing performance-wise, and for $170, that's just crazy. It was already kind of crazy at 200, what you got for $200. Now what you get for $170, it's not surprising since Acer just released like 14 new models, but it's definitely welcome.
Agreed. Craig, is this price too low? I mean, are we talking? And the reason I ask is that when you put a funny number on something like that might be too low, people think that they're not buying. Like they want to buy a laptop, and they might be sold a Chromebook. Is $169 almost too low?
I think you're onto something there, but it's not relevant because the price is back up to $199.
Oh, come on.
I'm not kidding. I just checked. I think it was a sale. Which might explain a random $30 price drop. I think we got overexcited, put it that way.
Oh, man.
And I think actually Brent Sullivan and Alvin Chin found this, and they are the deal hunters. If you're considering buying a Chromebook, look up Brent Sullivan and Alvin Chin on Google+, because they will alert you when there's a sale. I'm not kidding. They are excellent at what they do. Much credit to them. So I think, yeah, it was $169.15. That's a sale price to me. 15 cents? That's really specific for a retail price point. So I do think John's onto something, though, because there is perceived value. And as a consumer, if you were to walk into a store and see tablets ranging from $30 to $200 sitting on a shelf, and the next shelf over is a set of Chromebooks ranging from $169.15 to $1,400 with the Pixel, you are going to assume that the Acer C720, being the cheapest one there, undercutting the rest by nearly half, is the bottom barrel bin device. And that's not necessarily true, because the Acer C720 outperforms the Samsung Series 30, the HP 11 on the ARM chip, even the new Samsung Chromebook 2. So it'll definitely outperform the Bay Trail devices. I'll say it right now. Intel was subsidizing the Haswell chips, so if you're looking to buy a Chromebook in the future, the Acer C720 with the Haswell chip is going to have better performance than the upcoming Acer devices that have either ARM or Bay Trail. Now, if you really want power, go for the i3. But right now, you cannot beat even $199 for a Haswell Chromebook. You won't find a $199 Haswell that runs any operating system. So pick up a Chromebook, switch to Linux if you have to. Even if you need to throw Chrome OS out the window, just because of the hardware, you will not find that at another price point. You will not find that. So that's my potential buyer advice. But yeah, I think you're onto something. With $169.15 as a retail price point, I'm not sure the marketing people at Acer would let that happen for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually a negative, I think, in perception. So now, speaking of perception, I'm going to mention this. I don't think we need to talk about it too much because I think we've talked about it before. But Hangouts is going to go the WebRTC route, so that you don't need an actual extension to make Hangouts work, like the full-blown Hangouts, like video, audio, all that good jazz. Like literally, they're gonna make it all WebRTC, which is nothing but an HTML5 protocol standard that allows everybody to do a peer-to-peer connection. Super awesome. So that's coming. And there's a link in that to the show notes. Check that out. But one of the things I did want to talk about together was USB. Now, if you're familiar with the your iOS devices, your Apples, right? Especially your iPads and your iPhones, you know about the Lightning connector and how it's been touted as like the best thing ever in the world by Apple, and how and it is a really nice connector. But basically, some of the big pluses of it are that you can plug it in upside down or right side up. It doesn't matter. It's universal. You just plug it in. I think there are like 6 or 4 copper connectors on each side, and it just works when you plug it in. It can just do all it can tell what's going on. And that's how it works. Now, of course, USB, we're all familiar with how USB works. There is an up and there is a down, and you have to plug it in correctly, otherwise it won't work. But this Type C USB ports. Now, I'm gonna real quick, Craig. Have you heard of this?
Absolutely. I'm counting down the minutes. Seriously, this is going to be amazing. We're talking double the speeds of current USB 3.0, and I have to assume that some of the slow adoption we've seen with 3.0 is because this was on the horizon. We were waiting for this, John. This is going to change the amount of time we spend plugging things in.
He's not kidding. So So James, I'm going to throw it to you in a second, but I wanted to mention this in all seriousness, right? And everyone, I'm not going to give you a link. I'm going to have you Google it, and that is the fact that the EU, even Apple signed a pact that they would switch to USB chargers in the EU. Now, this was to reduce packaging and the fact that everybody and their brother had their own proprietary connector for either data or power or both. I mean, like literally your Nextel, your Motorola, your whatever phone would have sometimes 2 separate proprietary connectors to do the same darn thing, and then have a USB on the end for charging. And the EU was like, this is ridiculous, and said, we'd like to create a standard, and we want to use USB, and we want to use the micro, and we want to be done with it, right? So everyone signed this agreement, all the major manufacturers, including Apple. 2 years later, Apple comes out with Lightning, and is like, yeah, that's ours, that's the bomb, we're going to do that. So I think this is fantastic too. But James, have you had a chance to look into this thing?
Yeah, whoever decided to make USB port vertically symmetrical should be shot, because it wouldn't have killed them to make it like a trapezoid, so I just knew how to plug the stupid thing in right away. The fact that it doesn't matter anymore is like life-changing. This is going to save seconds of every day of my life and lots of gray hairs, because it's impossible to plug a USB port in the right way the first time. It just doesn't happen. You will always plug it in the wrong way, flip it around, and plug it in the second time. So this is amazing. It being faster, that's cool too. But I'm really more excited about it being reversible.
I do want to interject quickly and point out that the standard A plug is actually going to resemble the same one we have now. That's the big thick one, the big thick end of it. But that's okay, because I think the hope is that laptops will actually switch to the Type-C, so you'll have the same looking thing on both ends, and it'll look like the micro USB that most standard Droid phones have today. It'll look like that, only it'll be reversible, and it'll be on both ends, and that's what the port on your laptop will look like, which is actually smaller, so it saves some space there. And we'll do away with the Type A, which is what we have now, which will not be reversible in this new design. It remains Lego-like, and you have to flip it around at least twice for it to work. So, but hopefully, if I haven't read the commits yet, but I'm hoping that this discussion is implementing Type C for Chromebooks and not just Type A 3.1, which would be that would get my seal of approval. That's what we need.
Agreed. And it's It's the future. It's innovation. It's saving seconds off your day. And I totally agree that you do slam the A's in, and you're like, that's the wrong way. And you try again, and that's the wrong way. And you're like, what? And then you actually have to look and be like, okay, plastic side on that one, plastic on that one, and that goes in. You literally have to look, and you're like, did I just really have to do that? So yeah, I agree. The universal piece is important, but also the speed is important as well. So I think that's ultra cool. So that's it. That's it for the news, guys. Like I said, there's more news if you look in the show notes, right? If you go to practicalchrome.com and you check out the show notes, that's right, practicalchrome.com, and you check out the show notes of every episode, you're going to see more links. And we do have all the other links that I mentioned, so just definitely check those out. It's pretty cool stuff. That we've got in there, but before I jump into the main, which is of course the native client talk that we're going to do, I do actually also want to talk about, before we go on, about our sponsor today, and that is the Effective Group. So the Effective Group, basically what they are is they're this great company based out of the UK. They've been around for about 15 years, and they work with their clients directly to get things moving online. And basically, their tagline is making the internet work for you. So if you're a mom and pop shop, or even if you're a medium-sized business and you're like, you know what, we have no internet presence, or our internet presence is mediocre. We know from marketing, from surveys, that only 10% is coming from the internet, when we all know that, like for instance, practicalchrome.com, 80% of the people that hit our website, it's 80% is mobile. So if your traffic to your website is minimal, then you need someone like the Effective Group. And the Effective Group has a great track record. If you check out their portfolio and read their successes when you visit their website, which is www.effectivegroup.com, you're going to see a lot of great stories and a lot of great information about the websites that they build and how they're responsive. And responsive is kind of a buzz term right now, but basically that means that the website that they'll build for you looks identical pretty much on every single device, whether it be a tablet, the small screens that we have on the Chromebooks, right, or even the big screens. It looks good, and it looks almost identical. I mean, the logos are the same, the images are the same, everything just kind of comes together and looks tighter on mobile or on smaller screens. So they work with you on that, and then of course you've got the website design, and then you've got search engine optimization, which means that if someone goes to Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever search engine, then they're going to find you, and they're going to find you immediately putting in the search terms that you mention, and they work with you on that. They work on product listing, ads management, social media management. They work directly with you, right, to make sure that all of those things are taken care of, so that you don't have to worry about it. And the internet will then start to bring that in and bring it in. Now they actually state that through these success stories, they actually have a search rate and a website hit of 9-fold turnover compared to what a client was before, and that's amazing. So definitely check them out. Again, that's www.effective-group.com. Again, check out their portfolio, read their successes, take a look at them, and see if they might be something that you might want to work with. I think that you will, because again, the Effective Group is making the internet work for you and getting you more revenue. So definitely check them out. And again, of course, we would like to thank them again for sponsoring us. They've been a great sponsor over the past few weeks. So guys, now we're going to jump into the pinnacle of native client. Now that's a joke, because of the.
I get it.
Do you get it? You get it, James?
As of like an hour ago, I get it.
I know. So I have a number of links in the show notes that everyone should check out, and basically. There's one in there called the overview, and this kind of breaks down. So let's kind of snap back for a second. Apps in Chrome, whether they be in your app tray in your Windows machine, or whether they be on your Mac machine, or whether they be on your Linux machine, or whether it be on Chrome OS, you have these apps. There's hosted apps, which means that when you click it, it's basically a link to a website, and it's a website hosted application, which might still mean that it does run almost all local client code, which means that all of the code's been pulled down from the internet and it's sitting in your browser and it just runs as an application. Some of them actually act like that with only a few calls to the internet to work. Some of them have a lot of the data coming from the internet to work, so they're always going to be a hosted app. Then you have packaged apps. And we've talked about packaged apps from time to time, especially last week we were talking about, and we were looking at the web dev editor, the Chrome dev editor. Chrome web dev editor? I can't remember the name, but the packaged app, if I could actually like bring up the one that we looked at. So this is a packaged app, which means that all the assets that are there are coming from the machine. They're saved locally, and you don't need the internet to connect to them, right? So that is called a packaged app, which means that it is local, and you don't have to worry about being online to use it. For instance, like this DOS box on my screen right now is a local app, right? So everything that you see there is going to be local to what I'm doing. So I could be completely offline and I could use that app. Right, so right now I'm just looking at the Chrome apps thing, the apps page, so I can scroll through them. And Fancy Pants, this World 2, that's a local app, right? The 3M Player, these are local packaged apps. Now we're going to get into the difference between a packaged app that is HTML5, which means that it is written using the web languages, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And these are the languages that people talk about all the time when they're building a web page or they're building a web app. These are the type of languages that we're talking about. Even things that might look like they might be running at what we're going to talk about soon as native client. Some of them actually still are just running HTML5 languages. Even some of the stuff with all the 3D stuff. So like those languages are growing, getting bigger, and being able to do more and more. But let's talk about what we want to talk about today is native client. So if we were to head over to Google here, and we were to scroll down and we were to check out their page, and I'm just going to open one of their main pages up. This is the Chrome native client page, and basically this talks about what native client is and how the fact that it's using C and C++ inside of a web browser. Now this is seems kind of crazy that this can even be done, but when you actually do break it down, it makes a lot of sense. Basically what they did was they allowed you to package a C or C++ app, and then running through a native client module, it would then fire across and be able to run. So like you could even use these with hosted apps if you wanted to. So that way, unlike a packaged app, you could actually be like someone would go to the website, and then this client module would come down along with all the other HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code. This would come down as well in a little package, and then it would run because the HTML part would then call it and make it work through the native client module. So there have been some naysayers to this. There have been some people saying this is the best thing ever. And then, of course, there's also the breakdown between native client and then portable native client. So there's also that breakdown as well. So there's a lot of information. But what I want to do is, so I've kind of gone over like the breakdown of what it is. So what it is a break away from HTML5, the 3 languages that make up the web and web apps that we know now and the packaged apps that we know now. And it's bringing this extra module that says I want to use some C language that Google has created an SDK for that will package everything together and make an app runnable in my browser or runnable on actually as a packaged app. Craig, I know that you actually have this great article, and I've got to get that link from you again because I got to post it out there because you've got a great article out there on G+ also about this. What are your thoughts on the fact that let me put it this way, my concern with native client is that if you can write a C+ app or a C app And then you just have to do a little bit of HTML to make it happen. What's to prevent you from not, like, how does that doesn't that kind of stop the innovation of HTML5 a little bit if you can just constantly write these closer to these lower level languages?
Yeah. Well, kind of. It's kind of a strange way of looking at it. You're looking at it as a replacement or supplement to HTML5, which would then end HTML5 progress because you can achieve the same sort of things differently. I think. Now, see, you ruined a joke I had. My joke was going to be that this is horrible because anyone that remembers ActiveX and all of that nonsense, or Flash for the web, or Java applets, this is basically a plugin. Which, as we've seen, HTML5 was designed to get rid of plugins, and now you have Google embracing a very powerful plugin. So that's kind of interesting, too. I don't think native client is going to overrule HTML5 or halt progress by any extent, because HTML5 is a core part of bringing native client, completing the native client experience. Let's phrase it that way. You can build a native application in native client using C++ and even do the UI. But the trick is, if you want it to run everywhere and display nice and pretty across everything, HTML5 is still going to be your best bet moving forward because it's standardized. HTML5 is it's a result of the W3C, which standardizes the code and says, hey, we're going to publish these standards, and then it's up to the browser vendors to catch up. So the browser vendors being Microsoft, Apple, Google, Mozilla, Opera Software, and whoever happens to still own the Netscape branding. So by having all of these organizations work together to create these standards, we're going to have a more universal platform moving forward. Native client is not standardized. There's not a governing body to date that says what new features are going to be accepted and which aren't, which makes it a very Google-centric kind of thing. Right now, Google's the primary contributor. So we have nothing to say that this will be adopted by Mozilla or Opera or Apple or Microsoft. In fact, I would say they'll probably be last to adopt it if they ever get around to it. So I think HTML5 should still be our focus for sure. Native client is an interesting concept, and I'm going to be very interested to see how it plays out and how adoption actually happens, at what rate, at what speed. Do we need to push people in the right direction, which Google often does, as we'll talk about in a little bit with some Android-related functionality. But I think overall HTML5 is still going to be the platform moving forward. I'm very much in favor of that, and I don't see native client replacing it. I see native client being a powerful asset to have on the HTML5 side, but I don't see it becoming a battle. I hope that doesn't happen. Let's put it that way. I would be very upset to see that happen.
I'm with you now. Now the naysayers, a couple of them actually from Mozilla. One of them was the vice president of products, Jay Sullivan, said that Mozilla has no intention of running native code inside the browser, as, quote, these native apps are just little black boxes in a web page. We really believe in HTML, and this is where we want to focus. And that kind of goes to what we just talked about. And then the other gentleman, Christopher Blizzard, criticized, and I don't know if we want to call it Nasal or Knackle. I think Knackle might be the term, but the other one's definitely Pinnacle, claiming that the native code cannot evolve in the same way that the source code-driven web can. And he also described it to, of course, ActiveX technology like Craig did, and also the DLL hell, if you're familiar with Windows. And that's kind of part of the issue also, is the fact that there is a little bit of a break when it comes to the Knackle and the Pinnacle, or the Pinnacle and the Knackle. The Pinnacle, so we'll break this down real quick and then I'll throw it to James. The Pinnacle part of this, there's the Knackle and the Pinnacle. And the Knackle allows you to call architecture specific, and it is architecture specific. So you'll have an Intel-based one, an ARM-based one, things of that nature. And the Pinnacle part of it, there's an extra layer attached to this that allows you to take that packaged piece and write once, run everywhere. So that way, if you have an application and you've packaged it correctly with their SDK, you can use it in the Pinnacle version of the native client, the portable native client, and then that way it will actually run on any architecture that the Chrome browser is sitting on. So you can write once, run everywhere with a C application. And of course, they also talk about the fact that the common use cases of this is according to Google, is that the existing software components, right? So if you've got something written in C, it might be best to do this, and you might be porting it to the native client, which means that they're only on Intel. You never know. Legacy desktop applications, same thing, or really the same thing. Heavy computation in enterprise applications, again, because native client is going to be closer to the lower level languages, so it's going to be a little bit faster, and of course more accessible hardware. Multimedia applications because of codecs, and then also games. Tons of games are written in C and C++. And actually, one of the links that we have, and James, after I say this, I'm going to throw it to you. One of the links that I have in there is sample applications written in native client. And if you go there, they're all games, which is cool, right? One of them is actually Bastion, James, which you and I have talked about a couple times, which is a sweet game. I mean, really cool. Another one is Battle for Westnorth, which is an open source, really cool game. And then there's a bunch of different links there that you'll have to check out. But James, what are your thoughts on native client? Is it a good thing? Is it the mysterious black box? What are we looking at?
Anything that brings a game as awesome as Bastion to a $200 laptop has 2 thumbs up for me, because that game runs a lot better than I would expect a game that has that much going on at once on a potentially $169.15 laptop with 2 gigabytes of RAM and an okay-ish processor. So I think it's pretty impressive. Now, that being said, I have no idea what the performance would be like if they wrote the whole thing in HTML5 instead, so I don't know if that would be any better or worse. I've just personally seen what native client can do with Bastion, and it's amazing. If you haven't checked that game out, seriously, it doesn't matter if you have the crappiest laptop in the world, it will probably still run just fine. Give it a shot. But it is kind of, I kind of agree with Craig. I'm wondering, is Firefox going to adopt this? Is Internet Explorer going to adopt this? Is this going to be something that's just Chrome only forever? But I kind of this all goes over my head, so I'm just looking at the games that I like to run, and if it can do stuff like bring games like Bastion, I'm all for it. I'm waiting for Diablo 3 to get ported over to Chrome OS. Muted, John.
There. Did it do it? Did it work now? I keep on doing that. I gotta hit. You know what? If some people didn't write me notes while I was doing the show, that made me want to laugh out loud till my spleen bursts. So one of the links, and let me crack this open here on the screen here, was a game that I wanted to play, and I wanted to see how well it would work, and that was Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light. So basically, it's a Tomb Raider game, and it's no longer available, which was very depressing. But Angry Bots is still out there. You've got a number of different games out there that's pretty sweet, and great, James. I do agree with you that it's anything that brings more features, to the web is a good thing, right? So. Yeah, there you go. That's. I mean, what else can we say about native? I mean, we could get into like the details of it, about how like it all functions, but I think you kind of have an understanding of what we're talking about. But the fact that you have the web technology languages that make up the web, that make up web apps, and then you have the native client that makes everything better. Terrible that I can actually. I gotta minimize this window real quick because people keep on chatting about things and making me laugh. Even them thinking about chatting about things is making me laugh. I kind of want to leave native client this way. If you're using Chrome OS and you see an app that you don't know which one it's using but you really like it, does it really matter? So there might be naysayers out there, and like Craig said, it might be Google only. It is open source, though. According to all the documentation that I've read, it is actually completely open source. It's just that the other browser manufacturers have decided to hold off on it because they want to work with just the web. So that's it with native client when it comes to the specs. So let's get into. I'm not going to look at these notes that people are writing. Let's get into, James, when it comes to the Android apps coming, and if they're using native client, is that cheating, or are we talking about if when they do port it, they port it directly to HTML5? What do you want to see? Does it matter to you?
What I want to see is an app that works right. I don't really care how they do it, as long as it works on the devices that I'm using. That's all I really want. I don't know if there's such a thing as cheating when you're talking about developing. I think there's just doing it the smart way and the stupid way. And as an end user, I don't even care if they do it the stupid way, as long as when I download the app, it works the way they say it's supposed to.
Craig, what if they add a compiler for Java? What if they add a Java VM to the stack for native client?
I'm curious to see if that's what they're planning on doing. The limited field trial has me curious about that, just because it does seem like such a limited release. They're inviting just a few partners in to try it. It seems like that might be something they're floating around internally, like they want to invite people to test that out. Other than that, I'm not really sure how you would go from an Android APK written in whatever language Android uses, probably Java, unless it's using the web view, in which case you just port it as HTML5. But from that to HTML5 directly, but moving from Java to native client, you would just need a port tool. And you'd have to make some changes, of course, because you always have to make some changes. It's not just a upload it and then download the result. It doesn't work that way. You do have to make some changes, and depending on how old your app is, how many revisions you've done to it since you originally wrote it, sometimes it's easier just to rewrite it with the new organization systems in mind, rather than trying to shoehorn what you have now into the future. So I think it's interesting the way they're doing the developer partnerships at the moment. I'm a little hopeful. I wouldn't mind if it was native client. Like James, my primary interest is seeing a good app run well. Whether that's achieved using native client or HTML5, I couldn't care less, but do not put Java on my Chromebook. Do not put Java on my Chromebook. That's where I draw the line. Native client, sure. You want to run executables in the browser window? Go for it. But don't touch my machine with your Java-stained Android hands. That's where I draw the line.
Jason, that's actually exactly where I say it. After dealing with, I've been dealing with a number of applications that run on Java, and I have nothing wrong with Java developers. I think that they're developers that they're just trying to make a good application. I think that sometimes they're stuck with. I mean, I'm using some applications that are built by the people that maintain Java, right, or really by the company. So to see the app be as incredibly slow as it is makes me say to myself, stop writing apps that need this low-level language in Java, because it does not work very well. It just doesn't. So I kind of, I kind of do want people to stay away from Java. And I don't mean to be a person that busts on Java. I mean, whatever. If you write a great Java app, that's awesome, and good for you. And I think that you should be heralded up. But if you're the company that maintains Java and that you're making these apps that just don't run very well, I'm like, really? So anyway, that's my kind of thing about Java. I'm just like Craig. I'm like, keep your Java out of my Chrome OS. Don't throw another library just to make the masses happy. Now that that's kind of, I think, what Mozilla's vice president was saying when he said, "Don't bring me the black box. I don't want the black box. I want you to make HTML5 applications. Don't bring me a black box. Don't." because that's exactly what a Java VM would be doing. Is how are you going to be seeing what it's doing, right? So then it ends up being a myriad of different questions and things like that I'm not a fan of. So that's right. That's where I'm going with that. So that was kind of like the end there of our awesome native client episode. I think it was good. I think it described what was going on. The fact that you have the black box of seed being thrown into HTML and just running. It's kind of up to you whether or not you really care about it. I think that most people are just going to use it and not really care. Like I've got up on the screen right now, Bastion, the link for Bastion. I gotta stop reading chats. I'm gonna minimize this chat. And it'd be terrible if you found out who those two people are chatting that I could see. They're making me laugh. But as you can see, Bastion is on my screen behind me. So this is one of those apps that doesn't really matter to you. It's an awesome game. It works really well. So does it really matter that it's running in a black box fashion? So I'm going to kind of leave it there, and let's head over to James. James, where can people find Mr. Welbes in his native client?
Well, you can find me in Hangouts with Craig harassing you during the show. Otherwise, you can find me on Google Plus, James Welbes, and at tech.itiswhatitis.biz. I don't even know if I said that right just now. Tech.itiswhatitis.biz. Yeah, that's where I'll be.
Excellent. I like it. Mr. Tumblison, are people going to Google you? What are they going to do? How are they going to find Mr. Craig Tumblison?
Well, with Google's recent Skybox purchase, you can probably just find me on Google Maps. I mean, it's going to zoom in pretty close here soon. But in the meantime, you can find me on Google+. I use my real name, Craig Tumblison, or at chromeup.com.
Excellent. Now, I did just check you out on Skybox, and your car in the driveway does have its lights on, so I suggest you go turn those off, because otherwise you're going to have a low battery. So definitely go check that out, Craig. Of course, you can find me on the thepracticalchrome.com. You can find me on the Google Pluses. You can find me on all that really wicked stuff out there. And of course, this show, Practical Chrome, is the show dedicated to everyday Chrome users, and we do have it on YouTube. We have an MP3 that comes out. We're also going to be having a Chrome app come out, a packaged Chrome app. That's right. The current working title is Pod 5, but we're going to start out with a Practical Chrome app and then work towards that. So if you want to find out about that, definitely hit me up on the G Pluses or also on the Practical Chrome. You can either email me at john@practicalchrome.com or also hit the contact link at the top of the practicalchrome.com page. Practical Chrome. Practical Chrome. No matter how many times I say it, I almost get it wrong. So everyone, thanks for joining us. We've had a number of viewers watching the show live, and of course, definitely check out our MP3 coming out later this week. Really appreciate it. You guys have a good rest of the evening. James and Craig, have a good one, guys.